As a quick heads up before we get started, this episode deals with a number of sensitive topics. Parental discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to Your Daily Detroit. It's Monday, September 11th, 2023. I'm Jer Stay, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. And joining me is Fletcher Sharpe. You can tell by my tone, Fletcher, that the vibe has deteriorated.
Yeah, we normally pre-plan episodes that we're going to talk about, and we go over it, and we'd already had a game plan set. And then everyone woke up Sunday morning and got push notification from their different news outlet, and that very much changed the direction of the way this episode was going to go.
100%. And what becomes the top story is Mel Tucker, who is if you don't know, the Michigan State University football coach. He is accused of sexually harassing a rape survivor, specifically Brenda Tracy, who has been an advocate for this stuff. They've done programs about, making good decisions and all that stuff at Michigan State University through her program. After the report came out in USA Today, the university announced that Tucker will be suspended without pay pending the outcome of the Title IX investigation. This is another in a set of scandals for the university. This is the kind of thing that disappointing is only the beginning of the words.
It's disappointing from so many different facets. One, because of the action that was done. Two, because of who it was done to. Three, because of who did it and what they represent to the university, not just as a figurehead, but as a leader of young men. And four, because this whole thing happened after the fact that they paid this woman to come to the campus to have her speak about not doing this exact thing. So it makes me question a lot, because as a head coach, especially as a head coach who is a very prominent figure, you go to recruit kids to come to university, you go to their houses, you talk to their parents, you tell them about the integrity and the things that you are a part of. And sometimes you're blowing smoke up parents' butt. It's just we do all these things the right way. We want your 5-star kid to come here so he can score a bunch of touchdowns. But with Mel Tucker, I really believed it. And again, I don't want to make it a racial point, but I typically tend to root for most people that happen to be black, because in some instances, they are very much prominent figures, maybe not for their skill or not for their talent, but because they just stand out due to skin tone.
Well, and there's so few head coaches.
Right, especially in college football. So few successful black head coaches, people who have maybe one good year. Like Bobby Williams had one great year for Michigan State, and then the rest of his tenure was very not good for many reasons, on the field and off the field. So I'm I would love for a chance for a black head coach to, whether it's Michigan, Michigan State, Central Michigan, whoever, locally to do well. Yes, I'll support 100%. So to see him go to Michigan State, I was good for him. Had a really good first year, has not been so great on the field since, but they're building something this year. And then to hear this come out, and then to hear when it came out, it stings. It stings again, because Brenda Tracy, everyone knows her story. Who knows who Brenda Tracy? They know her story. So it's not this is you discovered it later. You literally brought her to this campus to tell people not to do this thing, the thing you allegedly did, and I know he's smarter than that. So I'm really wondering what was your end game here? What were you thinking? When this came out into the news, did you think it would make you in a positive light? It's so confusing for someone who I held a fair amount of respect for, just for their position and what they were doing. And maybe that's partially my fault for placing some respect in a sports figurehead. But I mean, as coaches, managers in their sport, etc., as you are leading young men or young women into metaphorical battle on the field or the pitch or the diamond or whatever the sport is, you expect them to carry themselves with an air of integrity to some degree. Oh man, this is a poop cocktail. It's very hard to stomach this and comprehend it. And I've spent the last about 19 hours that I've been awake because I try to understand everyone's side of like, why did this happen? And like, I can't comprehend why anyone would think this is okay. Why would you choose this person to do this? Someone who's been through so much struggle and strife in this exact arena to be like, let me go do this exact thing to you, allegedly. Again, like, I don't get it.
Well, and that's the debate, right? Because at the end of the day, Mel Tucker isn't saying that he didn't do it. He's saying that it was consensual. And he's saying that, of all things, he's saying that Brenda Tracy was looking for a sugar daddy.
Oh, no. That's the playbook of someone who's caught and has no other recourse. It's like, well, oh, yeah, you did catch me taking this cookie out of the cookie jar, but it's for my friend. It's not for me. Like, you have crumbs on your face, bro. Like, what? It's very obviously for you. Like, don't lie. It's like, well, they said I could do. Okay. All right.
In the investigation, apparently he FaceTimed Tracy while he was shirtless. He multiple times invited himself to her hotel room, sent her sneakers, complimented her body, like that whole thing. So I guess I just look at this and I go, like, what a mess. I also have some concerns because, MSU, according to a Detroit News article, waited 10 months to do the suspension. And it seems, at least according to publicly available information, the only thing that really got this interim suspension going was the fact that it became public. And that, I mean, I understand the privacy issues and things like that of a Title IX organization. I know that there's process and that's really frustrating, but it's also really frustrating to be like, oh, you knew this. Oh, your hearing was set, a few games into the season. Were we just going to get this bombshell in October?
I was reading an AP tweet where they're like, after recent developments, I'm like, I mean, like, we all know, like, is that the development? Is like, now the world knows what happens and now you have to act. Like, so it was rumored that interim head coach Harlan Barnett, who normally is a DB's coach, who's taking over, was made aware of these allegations in late December. So, like, the coaching staff knew. I'm sure there are people in there who knew.
Half the board knew.
It's only become an issue because now there are articles about it. It's so strange to see after what happened with Larry Nassar and the pain that was caused through that, to see just it kind of get bungled again. Like, I'm not saying they should have been like in December, like, oh, someone filed this, we got it. But like, we should not be finding out this late. We should not be finding out 2 games into their season. Like, this should have been handled during the very long off season. And the fact that it wasn't is, I don't know. Like, were they going to say, okay, we're going to into our bowl game, but we can't take the coach? Like, were they waiting for a moment where it's like, okay, now we can address this? Because I think 2 games into your season is definitely not the time for that. Not the time for the players who probably knew somewhat, maybe some didn't know, but now like they have to have an emotional shift. Not the time for the coaches who were, we're planning for this, and now it's like, hey, you're the head coach. And I don't want to minimize it and make it seem like I'm talking about the team, because they're not the main victim in this, but like they are also secondary people, tertiary people who are being affected by someone else's decisions. The people who've had similar things happen to them, who go to the university, who saw what happened with Larry Nassar and expected them to be able to just move on from this, I'm sure it reopens a wound for them, and I hope that there is care for them at the university, for people for them to talk to, because it's a very traumatic thing to have something like this happen to you privately than just get blown up publicly. And honestly, Brenda Tracy is a much stronger person than I, because I don't think this is something I would be able to relive every time I open up a news article for the next few months.
Well, and the discourse on this is about to get terrible, right? Like, I'm already seeing it. I've already gotten text messages from people. I've already gotten things from family. Like, the next month is going to be a giant back and forth about Brenda Tracy and Mel Tucker and all these things. I'm already starting to see it. As soon as this became an interim suspension, the floodgates opened. And it's just going to be this like circle all the way through the hearing with all different takes from all different sides.
Please don't victim blame and make it about that. Please don't say, oh, this happened. That's not, you're on the wrong side of history. I'll tell you right now, that's not. When stuff comes out and we know the full picture of everything at that point, we can all comment then. Until then, like, I think it's probably for the better for people to not make these weird, grandiose statements about one person or the other, because no, you're going to look real dumb when everything's over. I will say this, and this is the one thing where someone mentioned this and it made me feel a type of way at first, but also like, there might be some underlying thing there, and I hope this is not the case at all. Truly hope this is not the case, because at that point, it makes this kind of worse. There have been some rumblings about people at Michigan State not really feeling super confident in Mel Tucker's, like, they were behind him, but paying him as much money as they did, they were kind of like, "Ooh, we don't want to do that right now." So there's some rumblings that like this was brought up because they're trying to get out of paying him money, which I truly hope is not the case, because if that is the case, not only is Mel Tucker vile for what happened allegedly, but so is the university, because that's weaponizing Brenda Tracy's pain to try to get out of doing something that you are contractually obligated to do. So that's like a very 1-2% thought in the back of my head. I'm hoping and going to be pretty confident that's not the case, but like if it is, yuck.
I think there's an element of this that's about money, but I think it's in a different way. I think that making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed is important in that conversation about that $70 million left on his contract. Right? Like that, all the things have to be completely put together. And there is a process for a reason with this whole thing. But yeah, it's just not great.
I understand that people come to the show to listen to news, and typically with an air of, the light side of it.
There's no light here.
There's no light here. There's no making jokes. There's no such an awful way to wake up Sunday and Monday for us, and I can't imagine how it is for the people who are affected directly.
I also think about the entire Michigan State family, that there are so many people who just went to that school, alumni, staff, I don't know what the packaging department professor, you know what I mean? Like there's so much collateral damage because in our world today, we view colleges through the prism of their athletic departments. Nobody goes around being like, that's a great answer. Like that isn't the normal conversation. The conversation about athletics and sports is so intertwined, where the sports is far more important than the athletics in the discourse.
You only hear someone mention like, we're number one in oncology, like when it's Michigan versus Michigan State, or Michigan against Ohio State, or Central against Eastern. It's only like when it's between like this one, no one's walking around like outside in the middle of New York like, we're the number one dental school. Like no one does that. That's not. And like if you are, I'm proud of your university. I'm proud of you for being part of the university. I saw a tweet from someone who's an online friend who's like, I'll paraphrase, "Forget you, Mel Tucker, for giving me back hope in my university that I went to, that I lost faith in athletics after Larry Nassar, etc. Forget you for making me have hope that they're bringing in somebody who can help change the culture of our program." And it's like, yeah, this isn't about that person, but also I understand entirely, because this is someone who came in, win or lose, we're going to play the right way. We're going to do things the right way. Typically, coaches who say stuff like that have a pretty well drilled in like integrity thing behind it. Like, we're going to do things in a way where like people are not going to, they'll say, oh, they lost, but they lost, they played hard, they did this the right way. So to have someone of CV behind them come in and then do something like this, it's stomach turning, because it's not just the thing he did, but it's also kind of in a way like lying. Like you came in saying you would not do stuff like this, only to find someone who's had something like this done to them and then allegedly do the same thing to them. No, like it's actually frustrating me right now.
If you're a recruit on the program, are you leaving?
Transfer. Yep. If I'm there only to try to score touchdowns and like be like a college football stud on campus, then this might not bother you as much. But if I'm someone who came here because coach told me that I could come here and better myself as a person and all the stuff he told my family, yeah, I'll go play at Western Kentucky. I'll go play at the Citadel. I'll go play at some small university that's D1 or D3. Heck, I would even go to Wayne State and say, I'll just go here for a year, play, and go somewhere else. Because if that's something that means something to you, I can't be here. If this guy comes back after this hearing in October, if he comes back to be your head coach, yeah, I'm not here anymore. I'm not. I'm gone. Because I can't have someone who does that. Me personally, I couldn't have someone who does that and then tell me, okay, go do your suicide dashes. Nah, man, you go run. I'm not listening to you anymore.
All right, let's get to the rundown we had planned. Detroit Lions. It's a win. Something that you did not think would happen. Do you have the blue Kool-Aid next to you, sir?
No, but I will say this. It's kind of like with DCFC to a degree, where people are like, we have all these different pieces that could be really great, or they could be really terrible. And for DCFC, it hasn't really panned out the entire way. So I was kind of like, well, I've known the Lions for 33 years. I've seen them do things. I've seen them be great a little bit. Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, I've seen them be terrible. Scott Mitchell, Mike McMahon, etc. So, like, there's a lot of hype, but also I've seen hype turn into 0-16. I've seen hype turn into 2-14. So, yeah, a little bit nervous playing the Super Bowl champions and Patrick Mahomes, who, honestly, I feel very bad for him.
I don't at all.
I feel bad for him because if you look at the box score and then you just see he threw an interception, he had a lot of missed incompletions. If you watch the game, the interception, there's a still photo of it, and it's funny, but also if you've played the sport, you feel a little bit bad. There's the interception that happened. He threw a pass to Kadarius Toney, and the still shot is of the ball literally in Kadarius Toney's hands. It's like he's got it in his hands, he's caught it. And if you took that still shot and gave it to someone and said, oh, by the way, this picture resulted in a Lions interception for a touchdown, you'd be like, how? And then watching the play as the ball slipped between his hands into Brian Branch's one arm, who just took it. And I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Here's the deal. At the end of the day, the Lions took advantage of these mistakes in a way that they would not have in the past. At the end of the day, Brian Branch made that pick six.
Oh, he did, because he could have dropped it. He caught the ball and took it to the house, 100%. And the thing that I will say about the Lions, that the part that made me super uncomfortable about just whether they beat the Chiefs or not, is we've seen the Chiefs on a national scale, the Super Bowl and playoff games, be down in the last 4 minutes or so, or 3 minutes, and come down and score and win the game. We've seen the Lions in the last 2 to 3 minutes, 4 minutes of games, have a lead and then throw it away multiple different ways. We've seen them come down to be tied. I'll never forget, I was at softball 2 years ago against the Eagles. DeAndre Swift has an easy catch into the end zone to score. Puts the ball in his hands, turns, and literally throws it over his shoulder out of bounds to drop it. And I'm like, how do you do that? Physically, how is that possible? Like, that's not... It's like throwing a pass off someone's helmet and it's skipping all the way into the end zone into someone's hands. That's just something that's never going to happen. So when it got to be, the Chiefs got the ball back, a little bit of time left, I was like, yeah, this is not a good feeling to feel. Even when the Lions had the ball back after the Chiefs ended up going for it in 4th and 25, I'm like, this is not a good feeling to feel, because I've covered high school sports. I've watched someone go to kneel the ball down, trip, lose the ball, and the team run it back for a touchdown. And I'm like, this could realistically happen. It's giving me a lot of agita. My stomach's not feeling great. And then they went down to kneel, and then the ref was like, oh, you don't got to snap the ball anymore. That's when I'm like, okay, the game is officially over now. Now the game is over. They're walking on the field with 4 or 5 seconds left to shake hands. Okay, now everyone can exhale. So kudos to them. It's a long season, obviously, but as a lot of people who are not used to saying this as Detroit Lions fans, it feels really good to be 1-0 on a Thursday night and then come to Sunday and be like, I don't have to worry about anything. We've already won our game. We get to watch everyone else get stressed out. They're fine. We get a long break. So, like, I wouldn't say necessarily that I'm drinking the blue Kool-Aid, but, like, I'll be paying way more attention now. They've even if they'd lost that game, through the way they played, they definitely woken me up.
We were at Keyworth and watched the Miami FC fall to Detroit City FC 2-1 in a match that really got lively at some points, and I feel like we shook a little bit of rust off. We used our head quite literally twice on this one, and I think it's a win that we really needed and positions us a lot better to make the playoffs.
Yeah, the curmudgeon in me is not necessarily pleased if I were a fan that the last 3 DCFC goals have been off of someone's head, because those are like the lowest off of set pieces. Those are like the lowest percentage chances of going in. But the guy who just is like, that boy, good. 2-1 victory in a playoff race against a team who's trying to make the playoffs underneath you. You need that. It shows that you are trying to make it into the playoffs. It's something that matters to you. So to see that, that's a great sign. That means there's some life in Hamtramck. There's some life in the stadium. People want to actually make sure and hold on, and it doesn't necessarily hurt that Tulsa also tied that day as well. So it puts you in really good pole position. Honestly, at this point, all you have to do, you could win every single game, you could lose every single game, but the best thing you can do is do your best. If they win a game, we win. If they draw, we at least get a point.
FC Tulsa.
Correct. Like if they win, you have to win, or you have to at least get some points. You can't just draw when they win or lose you can't drop points anywhere. That's not going to work if you're trying to get into the playoffs. But it shows, it gives you a little bit of breathing space. And realistically, I mean, there's a chance they could, make it to 7th. Birmingham is, a game in hand, but they're 2 points ahead, and we all know how Birmingham is sometimes. So realistically, they could slide to 7th.
If we can win most of our games, I think we're going to be in good stead. Can't ask for more than it being in our hands.
Yeah, no, they have a favorable schedule. It's not, the most favorable, but it's a chance to do something with it. And honestly, that's all you can ask for is a chance. As a player, as a supporter, as anyone who's associated with the program, that's all you can really ask for is a chance to do something good.
All right, Fletcher Sharpe, not the best of circumstances to get together, but we will all, make the best of it as we can,
Like they say, you take chicken poop, turn it into chicken salad, and that's all we can really do this morning, unfortunately.
Feedback, 313-789-3211, dailydetroit@gmail.com. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharpe.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.